My twin sister's heels clicked like a countdown as she gloated, "You're out of the will, Bria." The lawyer's office felt like a stage for her cruel victory lap, her words slicing through me as our family watched in stunned silence. For years, I'd shared everything with Blair, our laughter, our secrets, even our face. But she stole my $5 million inheritance with a lie that burned deeper than I can describe. How do you forgive the one person you trusted most when they humiliate you in front of everyone you love? I nodded, hiding the fire in my chest, because I'd already found her dirty secret, an email tying her to a fraud that could destroy her. Next week, at her big family meeting, she'll expect applause for her vision. Instead, I'll drop a truth that'll shatter her world. Stick with me to see how I turned her betrayal into her downfall, and trust me, you won't see this one coming. I'm Bria, and for 32 years, my identical twin sister Blair was my mirror image, my partner in crime, my other half. Growing up in our family's sprawling estate in upstate New York, we were two peas in a pod, swapping clothes, giggling through late-night secrets, and pulling pranks that left our parents exasperated. I'd braid her hair while she planned our next adventure, like sneaking into the attic to hunt for Mom's old photo albums. Those moments felt eternal, like nothing could break us. We'd race through the estate's gardens, our laughter echoing off the stone walls, and I thought that bond, our twin magic, would last forever. But even back then, Blair had a way of stealing the spotlight, a hunger for attention I didn't see clearly until it cost me everything. Our childhood home wasn't just a house. It was a monument to Dad's real estate empire, a fortune built from scratch that promised Blair and me a secure future. The estate, with its ivy-covered walls and endless rooms, was our playground, but it was also a symbol of the $10 million inheritance we'd split evenly, $5 million each, plus the house and Mom's heirloom jewelry. Dad would sit us down at the oak dining table, his voice steady, and say, "You're my girls, and this is for both of you, equal shares. No question." I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Blair and I were a team, finishing each other's sentences, sharing everything. I never imagined she'd twist that promise into a weapon. But looking back, there were signs. Blair had this charm, a magnetic pull that drew everyone to her. At family gatherings, she'd hold court, telling stories that made Uncle Ted roar with laughter, while I cleared plates or read to Grandpa in the study. She'd flash her perfect smile, and suddenly, she was the star, the one everyone remembered. I didn't mind, much. I loved seeing her shine, even if it meant I faded into the background. "That's just Blair," I'd tell myself, shrugging off the times she'd borrow my favorite sweater and conveniently lose it, or when she'd repeat my ideas at dinner as if they were hers. Once, at a cousin's wedding, she danced with my high school crush, her laughter loud enough to turn heads, just to prove she could. I brushed it off, thinking, that's what twins do, compete, but love each other. I was wrong. The truth is, I was too trusting, too ready to see Blair as my ally. I didn't notice how her charm was sharpening into something else, something calculated. She wasn't just soaking up attention. She was building a narrative, one where she was the golden child, and I was the quiet, forgettable one. I spent my 20s freelancing as a writer, working hard for every dollar, while Blair built her influencer brand, posing in designer dresses and jetting off to tropical resorts. I was proud of her, even when she'd roll her eyes at my boring life. "You should dream bigger, Bria," she'd say, tossing her hair. I didn't realize she was laying the groundwork to take everything. Our parents' trust, their love, and the inheritance I thought was ours to share. When Mom and Dad died in that car accident 3 years ago, my world shattered. I leaned on Blair, clinging to her through the grief, not knowing she was already plotting. She cried at the funeral, her mascara streaking perfectly for the cameras, but behind my back, she was meeting with lawyers, spinning lies about my irresponsible career to Dad in his final months. I was the one managing the estate, skipping weekends to sort their finances, while she partied in Ibiza. Yet somehow she convinced him I couldn't be trusted. That betrayal, that calculated theft of my future, was just the beginning, and it set the stage for a reckoning she'd never expect. Have you ever felt like someone in your life always outshined you, taking more than their share? Drop your story in the comments below. 3 years ago, a phone call shattered my world. Mom and Dad were gone, killed in a car accident on a rainy highway. I was 29, and the grief hit like a tidal wave, pulling me under. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, just sat in their empty bedroom, clutching Mom's scarf that still smelled like her lavender perfume. Blair was my lifeline. She'd wrap her arms around me at the funeral, her tears soaking my shoulder as we stood by the caskets. "We'll get through this together, Bria," she whispered, her voice trembling. I believed her. I needed her. We'd lost our parents, but I thought we still had each other. What I didn't know was that while I was drowning in sorrow, Blair was already carving up our future behind my back. She played the part of the grieving daughter perfectly. At the memorial, she spoke to the crowd, her voice breaking just enough to draw sympathetic sighs from Aunt Clara and our cousins. She organized the catering, picked the flowers, even chose the music, Dad's favorite jazz playlist. Everyone praised her strength, saying, "Blair's holding it together for you both." I was grateful, too raw to notice the cracks in her performance. But while I was sorting through Dad's old files to settle the estate, Blair was meeting with lawyers in secret. She'd drive to the city, claiming she needed space to grieve, but she was building a case against me, twisting the truth to steal what was mine. I learned later how she did it. In Dad's final months, when he was frail from chemo, Blair visited him constantly, bringing coffee and charm. She'd sit by his hospital bed, painting a picture of herself as the responsible one, the daughter who'd made something of herself with her influencer brand. Meanwhile, she fed him lies about me. "Bria's always broke, Dad," she'd say, according to a nurse who overheard. "Her writing gigs barely pay. She can't handle money." Never mind that I'd been managing the estate's bills, cutting my own hours to care for him and Mom. Blair spun my freelance career as a failure, while her Instagram posts from yacht parties screamed success. Dad, tired and fading, believed her. She got him to revise the will, cutting me out of the $10 million the estate, even Mom's pearl necklace I'd always cherished. The day of the will reading last month was a gut punch I'll never forget. The lawyer's office was stuffy, packed with our extended family, cousins, aunts, uncles, all there to hear Dad's final wishes. Blair sat across from me, her designer heels tapping, her lips curved in a way that made my stomach twist. The lawyer cleared his throat and read the terms. Blair got everything, $10 million the estate, Mom's jewelry. I got $50,000 and a letter in Dad's shaky handwriting. "You'll understand someday," it said, cold and vague, like I was a stranger. I stared at the page, my hands trembling, as Blair leaned forward, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "Guess you should have tried harder to impress Dad, Bria. Maybe next time, huh?" Aunt Clara gasped, and our cousin Mark looked at his shoes. The room felt like it was closing in, their pity burning worse than the betrayal itself. I wanted to scream, to grab her by the shoulders and demand why. I'd spent years putting our family first, staying home to help Mom through her illness, handling Dad's paperwork, missing my own dreams to keep the estate running. Blair? She'd been off chasing likes and free vacations. But there she was, gloating, her victory lap humiliating me in front of everyone I loved. My face burned, my heart pounding so loud I thought it'd burst. Yet I stayed calm, folding the letter carefully, meeting her eyes. "I respect your win," I said, my voice steady. She didn't know I'd already started digging into her secrets, that I'd seen something on her laptop weeks earlier, something that could change everything. Blair thought she'd won, but her arrogance was her mistake. I'd always known she bent the rules, shady loans from the family trust, deals with questionable investors, but I'd ignored it, thinking it was just her being Blair. Now, her betrayal lit a fire in me. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious, and that rage sharpened my focus. I'd play the defeated sister for now, but I was already planning a move that'd make her regret crossing me. Has anyone ever betrayed your trust so badly it felt like a punch in the gut? Tell me in the comments how you handled it. After the will reading, I walked out of the lawyer's office with Blair's words echoing in my head. "Guess you should have tried harder." My hands shook as I gripped Dad's letter, the measly $50,000 check burning a hole in my purse. The humiliation stung, our family's pitying glances, Blair's triumphant strut, But something else was brewing inside me. I wasn't just defeated, I was done playing the quiet twin. For years, I'd let Blair walk all over me, but that ended now. I drove home, my knuckles white on the steering wheel, and made a decision. I'd find a way to take back what was mine. Blair thought she'd crushed me, but she didn't know I was already one step ahead. It started a few weeks before the will reading, during a rare visit to Blair's sleek city apartment. She'd invited me over, probably to gloat about her latest brand deal, and left her laptop open while she took a call. I wasn't snooping, at first, but the screen caught my eye. An email thread, encrypted but carelessly left unlocked, with subject lines like offshore transfers and keep this quiet. My gut told me to dig deeper. I skimmed the messages, my heart racing as I saw names tied to Dad's real estate company, mentions of diverted funds, and a plan to funnel money through Blair's consulting business. It wasn't just shady, it was fraud, the kind that could tank her reputation and her claim to the inheritance. I took screenshots with my phone, my hands steady despite the adrenaline. Blair came back, oblivious, and I played along, nodding at her stories while my mind churned. Back home, I dove into the evidence. I cross-checked the email names against Dad's old company records, which I still had from managing the estate. One name stood out, a shady investor Dad had fired years ago for skimming profits. Blair was working with him, siphoning money from the company's accounts into her own. She'd hidden it well, using fake invoices and offshore banks, but she wasn't as smart as she thought. The emails showed she'd been at it for years, even before Dad's death, betting no one would notice. But I did. And that discovery lit a fire in me. I wasn't the irresponsible twin she'd painted. I was the one with the power to bring her down. I spent nights piecing it together, working in my tiny apartment with papers spread across the floor. Every email, every transaction was a thread I followed, building a case that could expose her. I found bank statements she'd buried, linking her to the investor's shell company. I even tracked down a former accountant from Dad's firm who confirmed the numbers didn't add up. Blair's been playing a dangerous game, he told me over coffee, his voice low. If this gets out, she's done. I nodded, keeping my face neutral, but inside, I was buzzing. This wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice, about making Blair face the consequences of betraying me, our parents, and everything we were raised to value. The turning point came one sleepless night, staring at the evidence on my laptop. I'd been carrying the weight of Blair's betrayal, feeling small and powerless, but now I saw the truth. She wasn't untouchable. Her perfect image, her smug victory, was built on lies, and I had the proof to shatter it. I've been thinking I lost, I whispered to myself, a quiet vow in the dark. But Blair's the one who's about to fall. I leaned back, a plan forming. The family meeting next week, where Blair planned to unveil her vision for the estate, was the perfect moment. She'd expect applause, admiration, maybe even my tears. Instead, I'd bring the truth, and it'd hit her like a freight train. Blair's arrogance was her weakness. She'd left that email open, assuming I'd never look, never fight back. She underestimated me, just like she always had. But I wasn't the quiet twin anymore. I was ready to step into the light and take back what was mine. Not just the inheritance, but my dignity, my voice. The stage was set, and Blair had no idea what was coming. Have you ever uncovered a secret that could change everything? What did you do with that information? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The family meeting was Blair's big moment. She'd rented a private room at a country club, the kind of place with chandeliers and waiters in crisp uniforms, to announce her vision for the estate. I arrived early, my laptop bag heavy with the evidence I'd spent weeks compiling. Blair strutted in, her designer dress hugging her frame, greeting cousins and aunts with air kisses. She barely glanced at me, assuming I was there to sulk in her shadow. The room buzzed with anticipation as she took the floor, her voice bright, promising to turn the estate into a luxury retreat. "It's what Mom and Dad would have wanted," she said, her eyes gleaming with false sincerity. I sat quietly, my hands folded, waiting for the perfect moment. She had no idea I was about to turn her spotlight into a trap. As Blair wrapped up her speech, basking in scattered applause, I stood. The room went still, all eyes on me. "I have something to add," I said, my voice steady. Blair's smile froze, her fingers tightening on her glass. I opened my laptop, projecting the emails onto a screen I'd set up earlier. "Blair wasn't just after our parents' money," I began, clicking to the first screenshot. "She was involved in a scheme that could have destroyed Dad's company." Gasps rippled through the room as I showed the messages, dates, names, bank transfers tying Blair to a fraud that siphoned funds from the business. I kept my tone calm, letting the evidence speak. "She worked with a disgraced investor Dad fired years ago, hiding money in offshore accounts. These are her emails, her deals." Blair's face drained of color. You're lying," she stammered, her voice cracking. "This isn't true." But the screen didn't lie. I clicked to a bank statement, her name bolded next to a 6-figure transfer. Uncle Ted leaned forward, squinting, while Aunt Clara clutched her necklace, her mouth open. I turned to the family lawyer, Mr. Grayson, who'd been watching silently. "I've sent you the files," I said, handing him a USB drive. "This voids her claim to the inheritance. Fraud like this disqualifies her under Dad's trust terms." Grayson nodded, his face grim, as he skimmed the printed emails I'd included. The room erupted in murmurs, cousins whispering, some glaring at Blair. Her victory was crumbling, and I could see the panic in her eyes. She tried to rally, pointing at me. "Bria's jealous. She's making this up because she got nothing." But her charm wasn't working anymore. Cousin Mark, who'd avoided me at the will reading, spoke up. "Those emails have your signature, Blair. How do you explain that?" Others chimed in, their questions sharp. "Is this why you pushed for the estate? What else have you been hiding?" Blair's hands shook, her perfect posture slumping. She looked around, desperate for an ally, but even her biggest fans, like Aunt Clara, were turning away. I stayed quiet, letting her unravel. This wasn't about shouting her down. It was about showing the truth and watching her mask slip. I'd planned every detail, from the projector to the lawyer's presence, knowing Blair's arrogance would blind her to my moves. She'd underestimated me, thinking I'd stay the quiet twin forever. But I'd taken control, flipping the narrative she'd built to steal my future. The lawyer cleared his throat, addressing the room. "If these documents hold up, the estate reverts to equal distribution. Bria's share would be restored." A few cousins nodded, and I felt a weight lift, not just for the money, but for the justice. Blair's eyes met mine, wide with shock, and for the first time she looked small. Her golden child image was in tatters, and I'd done that, not with anger, but with cold, hard proof. As the meeting dissolved into tense conversations, I stepped back, my heart steady. Blair's downfall wasn't the end. I still had to face the fallout. But I'd reclaimed my voice. She'd humiliated me in front of our family, but now they saw her for what she was. The stage I'd set had worked, and her lies couldn't save her anymore. Have you ever had the satisfaction of seeing someone's mask come off? Share your experience below. The country club meeting room emptied slowly, the air heavy with whispers and sidelong glances. Blair stood alone by the projector, her arms crossed, staring at the floor as if it could swallow her whole. Her designer dress, once a symbol of her untouchable status, now seemed like a costume that didn't fit. I watched from across the room, my laptop packed away, feeling no joy, just a quiet sense of balance restored. I'd exposed her fraud, not to gloat, but to take back what she'd stolen, my dignity, my place in our family, and the truth about who we both were. Blair's empire of lies had collapsed, and the fallout was hers to face alone. The lawyer, Mr. Grayson, acted fast. He verified the emails and bank records within days, confirming Blair's scheme violated the terms of Dad's trust. The inheritance was redistributed, $5 million each, the estate split evenly, and Mom's pearl necklace. But the money wasn't the victory. It was the family's shift that mattered. Aunt Clara, who'd gasped at Blair's cruelty during the will reading, pulled me aside after the meeting. "We misjudged you, Bria," she said, her eyes soft. "You're the one who honors your parents." Cousin Mark offered to help manage the estate, and even Uncle Ted, Blair's biggest fan, stopped taking her calls. They saw me now, not as the quiet twin, but as the one who'd stood up for what was right. Blair didn't go quietly. A week later, she showed up at my apartment, her face flushed with defiance. "This isn't over, Bria," she snapped, her voice sharp but brittle. "I'll get back everything I lost." I stood in the doorway, calm, meeting her eyes. "I didn't want this," I said. "But sometimes you have to stand up, even if it means bringing down someone you've loved your whole life." She flinched, her bravado cracking, and left without another word. I heard later she'd moved to a smaller place, her influencer deals drying up as whispers of her fraud spread. The family cut her out of gatherings, and her once loyal followers unfollowed in droves. She wasn't broken, but she was alone, her charm no match for the truth. I didn't celebrate. I spent weeks sorting through the estate, walking its familiar halls, touching the walls where Blair and I once raced as kids. The memories hurt, but they also grounded me. I wasn't the naive twin anymore, letting Blair take what wasn't hers. I'd found my voice, my strength, and I used it to protect our parents' legacy. I donated part of my share to a charity Mom loved, something Blair never would have done. The rest I saved, planning a future where I'd write my own story, not live in her shadow. The necklace, delicate and gleaming, I wore to feel Mom close, a reminder of what I'd fought for. Blair's isolation was her own making. She'd built her life on taking, my ideas, my trust, my inheritance, and now she had nothing but the consequences. I didn't hate her. I pitied her, but I wouldn't let her drag me down again. The family's trust, their respect, was mine now, earned through courage I didn't know I had. Standing in the estate's garden, the same one we'd played in as kids, I felt free. Not from Blair, but from the weight of her betrayal. I'd reclaimed my place, and that was enough. Do you think Blair will ever recover from this betrayal? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit subscribe and share this with someone